Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I have the pleasure to open now the last fifth day of this workshop. I will just start with reminding you that what we actually wanted to do at the beginning was to have a physical workshop here in Esrin in May. And this was supposed to be a big event where we would gather the whole community. Then we decided to replace this event with 2 other events. So we hope still that we can have a big community gathering event next year in Frascati. And we decided also to have this online event this week in order to not have to wait so long time before we meet, at least virtually. And also because we needed some input from you in order to help us shape our programs, both on the EC and the ESA side, that we need to work on now from now on until next summer. So in this session today, we will first see some highlights from the 4 previous days, as well as a summary of some requirements, some recommendations that we got from you. And thereafter, we will look at what Copernicus has to offer for this Earth observation agriculture community before we go into the programs of both the EC and of the ESA, which will be the framework in which we can then define activities to address these issues that you have identified. And this is also so that you can have this in mind, what our programs, how they are, when we have this discussion afterwards, where we want to get your recommendations, not only on what kind of issues you have to address, but also a bit on what type of activities we should do in order to succeed in this. So after that, we will have 1 hour with a hopefully very interactive session on this, with discussing this, which issues and in what way. And after that, just remind you also that we have this requirement booth also for the session of today, so that when we have finished our 2-hour session now, we invite you to go to the requirements booth and continue the discussion there. So with that, I pass the word to my colleague from DG-RTD, Marjan van Meerloo.
Yes, thank you so much, Espen. Yes, it's weird doing this from Italy and Belgium instead of next to each other in Esrin, indeed. But I would also like to welcome all of you listening into this final session of this whole week, which have been filled with nice presentations. So I hope we can continue this. Indeed, as Espen said, we will start with a presentation from Benjamin Koetz on the highlights from the side of ESA. Then Michel Massart from Copernicus, from DG-DEFIS, will tell us a bit more about Copernicus and agriculture. Doris Marquardt from DG-Agri and myself will take you into Horizon Europe and specifically the Partnership on Agriculture of Data. And then Espen will talk to us about the FutureEO program, which should leave us enough time to also discuss with you what are the future needs of our community. And with that, I think we can start with Benjamin.
Thanks a lot, Marjan, for this introduction and opening the last session of this workshop. I will shortly share my screen. Wait a minute, it's wrong. Here we go. All right, so we thought, since not everybody has been with us the whole week, the digital format is allowing all kinds of interactions, but the physical one is not one of them. We wanted to give you, first of all, a highlight, but also making sure that that we make this workshop interactive, because this workshop is about you as a community. We want to learn from you and we want to work with you. So it's also, we try to make our best to get recommendations from your side, ideas, how we can work in Earth observation for agriculture. And that I will summarize in a short way. These are coming from this requirement booth, but also from the discussions on doing the sessions, and they have been consolidated with the shares of the respective sessions. So just to remind everybody why we were here, our main workshop objective was to identify the research challenges in the Earth observation domain to monitor agriculture in general. And that is, I think, the biggest thing to really allow us as the European Space Agency, but also in the European Commission side, to really see how we can bring the sector forward in the research needed for making sure that agriculture is being monitored in the right way. On the right-hand side, you see a lot of keywords. That is basically what we thought would be interesting and to discuss. So it's not only research challenges in a high level, but we want to go into the details, and the sessions have shown that very nicely. Before going into these different sessions, I wanted to share you who we were dealing with during the last 4 days. So you see, first of all, 440 total participants were registered on the online platforms where we were holding the workshop. That is almost double we normally have if we work in the physical world. That is certainly also in a way a success, but I'm also, well, I mean, would have loved to see you also in person at the same time. So there's a give and take all the time. It's a very international community. We have mainly Europeans, but we also had about 20 participants from the United States, also the same amount from Africa, from different countries, and even going into the Asian side on the Indian, and I think there was people from Pakistan as well. Then there's also heterogeneities in the type of institutions which logged in. In fact, we are here a research workshop, but there were also about 30% of the people who logged in were from companies, agriculture, let's say real agriculture companies, but also service providers in that sense, government agencies, and international organizations like FAO or the JRC and the Commission. So with that, I would like to go now in the different sessions, highlighting what was, kind of the main research highlights, and then and also the recommendations. So the first session was about the environmental impact in agriculture and how that is being covered in the new European Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy. That was shared by Bettina and Hans-Jörg, both from the European Commission, from JRC and the RTD side. And I think the biggest highlight, at least for me, but also I think for most of us, was that we have the first European crop type map, really continental, based on the Sentinel-1 time series, and using another European time series from Copernicus, which is a European asset, but also using the Lucas part for the Insitu type part, Insitu data. So that really is a European product produced by JRC, and that will be helpful for all kinds of research questions. But at the same time, we also have heard from the development in the Common Agriculture Policy part. So we see that in different paying agencies, this check by monitoring approach is evolving. We also see that agri-environmental indicators are being more used for policy impact assessments, and that probably also for the future is interesting. And finally, there is also interest in using Earth observation to follow agriculture practices, and that can be actually used to reduce greenhouse gases emissions. And that, going back to the Green Deal, I think is important to see. Recommendations. I will not go through all of them. We have quite a bit of them, but I want to highlight some of them. There is the mention of the partnership of agriculture data, and I am sure Marjan and Doris will come back to that. But we got several recommendations in that context as well, to bring in, for example, open source database for in situ data for crop types and agriculture practices, these could be then used also for different indicators, so supporting reporting in the policy context, in the CAP, or also in the DG Klima, DG-ENV in policy domain. And if you go more to the, let's say, to the space data sets, there was also a recommendation to get analyze-ready data sets from Sentinel-1, because that would enable to get other people more using these data sets. So the next session was more about climate change, adaptation, shared by Jose and Belen from the University of Valencia. We had presentations on a range of different applications, starting from the FAO Agriculture Stress Index, which is now country-specific, and you see on the right-hand side in Nicaragua how that is being used to assess the drought impact in that country. You can forecast now also droughts. Then there was also new research being presented using the fluorescence signal. That is really the preparation for the FLEX ESA mission coming up very soon. But also how climate change and causing extreme weather, for example, lodging crops, and how that can be monitored by Sentinel-1. Finally, here we also have recommendation. Here I would like to highlight mainly the part that there was a huge lack of Insitu data being identified. And there is a call for like kind of a community action at European level to facilitate the data accessibility of the Insitu data. And I think that is also a recommendation to ESA and very importantly also the European Commission. I will not go more further in this detail because it's a very rich number of different recommendations and proposals. Session 3, the highlights here about the water resource management and productivity was very much focused on how water in the range of irrigation and drought management, and also like kind of early warning context was being used. FAO again has already a continental monitoring system with a WAPO product online. They showed that from continental, but also on national level, that this is very important information to understand the impact of lack of water scarcity. But you also need very often for interpretation the local knowledge. So there's a lot of implications around that. Then there was a new downscaling approach using in combination Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3, and they were validated already over 11 flux towers, and that is an open source tool. Finally, JRC was presenting nicely the ASAP tool to visualize the status of crops, even using now Sentinel-1 and 2 on a local level. Visualization seems to be, it's important to transfer this information to practitioners. Recommendation here were about how to use best the Copernicus Sentinels and services in this context. Evapotranspiration and water productivity needs a lot of different inputs, so we need to use all the different data sources for that. There is also that we need to have a higher frequency and a better resolution of land surface temperature to do real water resource management. So that is what the proposed Copernicus mission, the land surface temperature monitoring mission, is producing. And finally, the early warning part, as I already mentioned, is basically it's important to get this information in the hands of practitioners. So finally, the session 4 on food security and the sustainable development goal number 2. And in this context, also thinking about yield and sustainable production, shared by Alyssa from University of Maryland and Nasa Harvest, as well as Marie Weiss from the French Agricultural Research Institution, INRA. So here we had a very nice list of presentations coming from the first one from GeoGlam producing or defining or presenting the first definitions of the essential agriculture variables, and that is a kind of a community effort to define what information you will need, and that will be translated in the research agenda. That leads me to also the one of the points which was mentioned also in the GeoGlam context is the national agriculture statistics, how you use satellites to get a higher granularity, but also timeliness to get this information into the hand of the national statistical offices. That was presented by FAO and the University of Catholic de Leuven. That is a full new user community, and I think it's a lot of information to be developed in the future there. Finally, there was what I thought was also a very new innovation, is the first commercial European yield forecasting system presented by the company Vista. They combine modeling and crop type mapping to provide at a European scale the information on how yield is developing in 2020. It's a new and first. And to conclude, smallholder farming, and that was a very interesting approach how to see Earth observation going into the value chains of smallholder farmers in Africa. So here we have a whole list of recommendations. They range from producing essential agriculture variable at global scale, also other level 2 or level 3 products to make that readily available, up to the recommendation to go to very high resolution images, because we need that for resolving the mixed crops. In many areas of the world, we don't have homogeneous fields. That is important to understand with higher resolution. But then there's also a whole topic which we have not normally talked a lot, is about the soil, the underlying resource where we grow vegetation and the agriculture crops. So how is that, how we can monitor agriculture practices to conserve soil in a sustainable manner, no tillage, for example, or understanding how the soil carbon is being preserved. I think that's more or less it which I want to highlight on this one. And with that, coming to my final slide, just summarizing that we had quite interesting 4 days to interact with you in a virtual manner, but in a very broad manner with 400 participants. 27 ideas were collected from you, and I want to really thank you for that feedback, because that's why we do these workshops. We want to get your ideas and your expertise to be considered in the research and development programs of ESA and the RTD part from the European Commission. They will be now presented by Marjan and Doris and Espen, and not to forget the Copernicus program by Michel. All of these things come together to really work with the science community to bring forward the agriculture monitoring. And I hope we can next time meet in 2021 on a virtual manner and report back how the feedback you gave us has been integrated in the program. With that, I hand over to my chairs, Espen and Marjan.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ben. Since I'm sure that a lot of people who are actually watching now have also been watching over the last couple of days, I don't expect to have any clarifying questions needed for now. So without further ado, I would like to then give the floor to Michel Massart, and also to leave maximum time in such a way for the discussion. So Michel, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I will try. So I will try to share my screen. Just tell me if it's working. Do you see my screen?
Yes, very well.
Okay. Okay, so I will give you a general overview of Copernicus for agriculture. I would like to thank ESA, of course, for organizing this meeting. I would like also to congratulate the World Food Programme for the Nobel Prize received this morning. And so it's a main actors in the agriculture domain. So congratulations to the World Food Programme. I don't know if EuroGEO is around the table, but would be nice. So Copernicus chronology, I will give you, it's a general presentation. So Copernicus is not a new program, as you may know. We started in '98, so the last century, with the Baveno Declaration, and it became fully operational in 2014. So the objective of Copernicus was to develop EU capacity in Earth observation for environmental monitoring. But it's also an economic instrument to create jobs, but also to support the green economy and, of course, particularly the agriculture strategy. It's an operational program, so not specifically dedicated to research. So we have adopted a free and open data policy, and that's very, very important for the future and for the development of the application. Just a simple word that we are working on at the Commission with a 7 years budget cycle. And that means that next year we will enter in a new cycle. So we have intensive budget and portfolio discussion this year, and specifically with ESA on what will be the future of the program. So the main structure of the program, it's of course a user-driven program. At the center you see the services, the Copernicus service. On the left, you have the space and Insitu component, and based on this space and Insitu component, the service delivers core products. And these core products are defined to answer and to support EU policies requirements specifically, but also they are in charge of feeding the downstream and the business applications. And so this is the general structure, or let's say the governance of the program. Of course, the Commission is in charge and managing the program. And you see the main actors. In the center, you have the services, and in the center of the services, you have the land service. The land service will be in charge of all the agriculture application and all the agriculture development. And here you have specifically two actors. The environmental agencies, which is based in Copenhagen, which is in charge of the European territory and the development of agriculture in the Earth observation support to agriculture in the EU. And you have the JRC, the Joint Research Center, which is in charge of all the agriculture activities outside of the EU. So you may know that the budget of Copernicus is quite high, but it's quite high because we are launching our own satellite. So more than 80% of the budget is allocated to this space component. And this was important for ensuring the sustainability of the program and to be sure that all services are getting the satellite data they need and when they need them. Autonomy, Earth observation autonomy was an essential element of the program. And so you will see that we will launch around 20 satellites, or let's say 6 types of satellite and different units for each type. Currently, we have, I think, 7 satellites in orbit, 2 units of Sentinel-1, 2 units of Sentinel-2, 2 of Sentinel-3, and 1 unit of Sentinel-5. I don't go into the characteristics of this satellite, you perfectly know that. So I repeat, the data are free and open. So here you see the deployment of the satellite, and just there is a continuity of the launches to ensure the sustainability of the data delivery, of course. Currently, we have Unit A and B flying for 1, 2, and 3. But we may see 3 satellites in orbit in around 2024, linked to the lifetime, in fact. So more data and higher observation frequency is expected. Today, there is no commitment from the Commission for 3 satellites to be in orbit all the time. But it's a possibility in 2024 due to the lifetime and the excellent quality of the satellites. Of course, Copernicus is not a static program. And so we are already thinking of its evolution to answer to new policy needs and existing gaps. And there is a first document published by the Commission in 2016 on the space strategy for the future. This will give you a general context for the future of the space program. But there is also a user requirement survey launched in 2015 to try to identify the gaps of the current observation, the future needs, but also the observation which needs to be improved. And based on these two exercises, we have decided to go for a two-step approach. In fact, first to try to fill the gaps, the main gaps of the current observation, with some expansion high priority missions. And this will be, we will try to launch them by 2025. And then secondly, to look and to start to prepare the next generation of Sentinel for 2030. All this, of course, is subject to budget allocation that we are discussing now this year and for the next 7 years now. So here you see for the EU space strategy and the user requirement survey, we have identified some priority challenges like climate change, but also agriculture is a clear priority. We have also identified with the survey, the user requirement survey, specific challenging and specific gaps. Here you see the list of the gaps. They have been ranked based on the impact on EU policy, but also on the interest for market development and business application. So 6 main missions have been retained, but I just pick up here 3 which are directly linked to land and agriculture application. We have the thermal mission, which is a little bit the baby of Benjamin, the hyperspectral mission, and the SAR L-band mission. So this is here you see the 6 missions which have been considered as an expansion phase, so around 2025. On top of the agenda, of course, is the CO2 mission, but we have the thermal mission called LSTM, the hyperspectral called SHIME, and the L-band SAR called ROSE-L. So here a quick look on the LSTM mission. The LSTM mission will have a revisit time of around 2 days with 2 units. An observation time early in the afternoon, around 1 p.m., and a resolution around 50 meters. The main objective of the mission is, of course, agriculture with evapotranspiration monitoring, but we can also cover mineralogy, urban heat, drought, and water stress is linked to evapotranspiration. So same for the SHIME mission, revisit time around 12 days for 2 units, a resolution around 30 meters, and observation time in the morning around 11. The main application is agriculture nutrient monitoring, soil properties, and raw material. If I come to the ROSE-L mission, SAR mission, it was initially designed for polar application, but has application, of course, in the agriculture domain with soil moisture and crop type mapping. Characteristic, it's a revisit time around 3 days in Europe and a resolution between 8 and 10 meters. If we speak, it's a not official slide, so I will go quickly on it so you cannot catch any details. But let's say that if we speak about the next generation of the Sentinel to be launched after 2030, we are still at an early stage of the discussion, and we are still gathering a clear vision on the needs. But it seems already that for the land and for the optic missions, we would like to go for, let's say, not a fusion, but a conversion of Sentinel-2 and Sentinel-3, meaning to try to offer the repetitivity of Sentinel-3, but with the resolution of Sentinel-2. It's a very challenging approach that we are considering, in fact, today. And so we have organized to gather these user requirements for the future. We have organized end of last year a meeting in Frascati with ESA for the land sector, and we collected these needs, and particularly the agriculture needs. And the experts came with these requirements. So you see that they would like to see very high observation frequency to get cloud-free observation each week, meaning that nearly an observation every day. and a resolution up to 5 meters. So that's even better than what we are getting today with Sentinel. So, and even in specific cases, they were requesting a 2.5 meter. So that's a little bit the specification that we will try to defend for this next generation optical Sentinel. If we now move to the services, of course, the agriculture service, I mentioned that there are two main parts, the global and the pan-European part. So so let's have a look at the global first. So you know that we are producing these biophysical variables every 10 days, 1 kilometer, 300 meter resolution. More than 20 variables are currently produced. And some are essential for agriculture monitoring, of course, like LAR, FAPAR, but also soil moisture. And these variables are used in many bulletins around the world. Agro-meteorological bulletins are using these data. Another element, and I know that Felix is listening to this. It's something that is managed by the Joint Research Center in the context of the global hotspot monitoring activity. It's a support that we are giving to GeoGlam, and the objective is to map crop type and to produce annual area statistic in several countries in East Africa, and to develop the competencies of these countries to in the future to do that job themselves. If I move to Europe, of course, in Europe, CAP monitoring is on top of the agenda of the land service, particularly the monitoring and evaluation aspect of the CAP. And EA is having a specific attention on this. Some products of the service are already relevant for this aspect. For example, I can mention the imperviousness and the small woody feature, which are already in production. One new product that you have already seen during the session on Monday is the crop type mapping to be done annually, which is also in line with the support of LULUCF climate requirement. This illustration is coming from an ESA project, the Sen4CAP project, in fact. Another product is the high-resolution vegetation phenology and productivity layer, which could be useful for monitoring grassland practices. Also for the monitoring of phenological events and study of climatic variation. You can observe interannual variation in the start of the season, but also in the length of the season, and that's a crucial information in many cases. And the last element that I mentioned already is the monitoring of the small woody feature at European scale. It's an essential element and indicators for agro-environmental status monitoring. Another activity which is not part of the land service per se, but is the support given by the Joint Research Center to the paying agency using the DIAS platform. And GRC has provided technical support to the paying agency with using open source processing tools on the DIAS platform. And this was done at the request of DG-Agri, but in contribution with ESA and EUMETSAT. And this approach is based on the monitoring of markers, but we have already seen the similar approach presented on Monday afternoon. And this was, I don't know exactly how many paying agencies were supported by GRC, but there were, I think, around 10 paying agencies. So what about the future plan for the land service? The portfolio, as I said, because we're changing the cycle, budget cycle is under discussion for the next budget cycle. The main element is, of course, to ensure service continuity with some optimization, like, for example, cloud processing. We will move to that. Service evolution will be quite limited because you know the financial conditions that we are facing in Europe currently now. We will but for sure we will try to take advantage of Sentinel-2, especially if we have 3 units flying, with more high-resolution products, including potentially a move from the Sentinel-3 biophysical variable to Sentinel-2 biophysical variables. At global scale, for us, a particular attention will be paid to support to GeoGlam. We have mentioned already the essential agriculture variable, but also to support to FAO. food security, water management, or the development of specific SDGs or indicators for SDGs. At the EU scale, the current product will continue in line with the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy needs. And this will include also the link with the climate strategy support and, for example, the LULUCF. So with a link to the research and development, because I know that this meeting is oriented towards research and development, Copernicus is as I said, an operation program, but with operational services. So the implementation of the service is based on the user needs, but it's also based on state-of-the-art and mature methodology. And for this, we need the support of the research, of course. We need the support of the research community for the evolution of the service, but also for the uptake of our products by the downstream sector. And we are getting today this research support from three main sources. From ESA, of course, since the GSE developments, they've been really instrumental in developing GMES at that time, but also from DG-GRC, which is, of course, the main instrument in the Commission for research, but also from the research program, from the FP program to Horizon 2020, and now from Horizon Europe. And so here, for example, the last 6 years, we have funded 17 projects linked to service evolution in Horizon 2020 program, and several in line with agriculture domain. We have also funded 25 projects in the downstream sector, and some also in the agriculture domain. Of course, we will continue the same approach for the research program of the Commission, Horizon Europe. And Copernicus is included in this Horizon Europe framework under the Destination 5, which is dedicated to space. I don't give you all the details, but this is the main element of the Destination 5. And in this space, we will define the future call for the evolution of the service and the development of the applications. In the evolution of the service section, the main objectives are to enhance the service, as mentioned several times, but also to look at cross-services domain, including agriculture. So meaning that for agriculture, we would like to look at the applications which are making use of, for example, the climate service of Copernicus and the land service, or the atmosphere service and the land service applied to agriculture. In the development of activities, a specific attention will be paid to artificial intelligence to fully exploit the Copernicus data and the archive, or already the archive of the Copernicus data. And also, we will pay a specific attention to synergy between Galileo and Copernicus, and especially in the precision farming, for example. This is a typical case where Galileo and Copernicus can play together a major role. And so I would like now to conclude with some research element, just some. I don't go into deep analysis. So the research community can use the Copernicus data and product, of course, but Copernicus needs also the support of the research community for its evolution and to remain state-of-the-art. And I see a particular interest in the preparation of the uptake of the expansion high priority mission, and maybe using the airborne simulation data that have been acquired, and also existing similar satellites. And so I think we have to pay specific attention to prepare this expansion mission and the services, operational services based on this expansion mission. I see that we could also try to build maybe I should not say that, but to try to build a playground for research community. I've seen many applications using Google Earth Engine, but we should try to develop a Copernicus Earth Engine with all the Copernicus data and products. And maybe this idea could be brought to, not to DG-DEFIS because we don't have a lot of budget, but let's say to DG Connect and on the European side. And I think that could be a good playground for the research and access to the research. And I think the ESA is doing a great job with research activities at global level, supporting the SDG and agriculture. And I think this should continue. But there is also a research need for the uptake of satellite data by the business sector. And if we speak of agriculture, for example, precision farming in the context of the green agenda. And that's an element that I would like to see. And last but not least, I think we need let's pray for us. I think we need a better coordination between all the actors, donors of the research community in Europe, meaning a better coordination between ESA, the GRC, but also Horizon Europe, and also the calls of the different launched by RTD, by DG-Agri, and by DG-DEFIS. And which are, but it's going on. It's getting better slowly, but it was in the past often poorly coordinated, and so I think we should improve this situation. And I stop there. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Michel. We'll take one single question that came so far, and we just encourage people who watch to ask their questions to the speakers in this field on the right hand of your Brella screen, so that we can take them afterwards. So one question to Michel that came here is Copernicus also providing Insitu data?
That's not the most easy question, in fact. Well, in the regulation, officially, the Insitu data, the provision of Insitu data is the mandate of the member states. But of course, this is only valid for on the European territory. And yes, we have an Insitu component, but this Insitu component, which is managed by the environmental agency in Copenhagen, is in fact in charge of coordinating the acquisition and the collection of this Insitu data. So the collection per se on the ground is under the mandate of the member states, is the contribution of the member states. It's an in-kind contribution of the member states to the program. But there is a coordination body, and that's the role of the Insitu component. There is also in some component or services which are dealing at global level, some collection which is directly done at the service level. For example, in the global land component of the land service, there is an activity, Insitu activity, collecting data for the validation and the calibration of the biophysical variables.
Okay, thank you very much, Michel. So then we move to the next presentation, which is on agriculture research in Horizon Europe and innovation for agricultural policies. And this presentation will be done by Marjan from Meerloo from DG-RTD and Doris Marquardt from DG-Agri. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Espen. Yes, I will start this presentation with taking you a little bit into the world of EuroGEO, but specifically Horizon Europe, so what is still to come. And then halfway, I will give the floor to Doris to present the proposed Horizon Europe partnership on agriculture of data. But first, EuroGEO and then Horizon Europe. So I'm just trying to, yes, go to the next slide. Before we actually start Horizon Europe, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to quickly put you in the direction of the Green Deal call. It is the last action under Horizon 2020. We recently opened it in September. The deadline is 26th of January. And please, if you are looking still for some nice opportunities to contribute, either from the side of agriculture or from the side of Earth observation, or even better, the combined side, please look at the Green Deal call, which is there. But then, as promised, not yet, sorry. Of course, then EuroGEO. I'm sure many of you here know actually the group on Earth observations and EuroGEO, but just in case you don't, I'll quickly take you into it. So GEO is the global group on Earth observations. It's an intergovernmental partnership as set by an international agreement. It's non-binding with voluntary contributions. They can still be substantial though. And next to 111 nations and 133 participating organizations, the European Commission is a member of this. It's divided over 5 caucuses, and for the European caucus, Patrick Child, the DDG of Research and Innovation, the department I'm coming from, is holding the co-chair position. Then for EuroGEO, it's the European contribution to GEO with as keywords cooperate, coordinate and combine, and it has Copernicus as a major element. How do we work on EuroGEO? We basically take 2 routes. On the one hand, we look at fixed-term projects with funding programs. That can be Horizon 2020. The ESA project is currently a really big contribution, but we're also definitely looking into the successor Horizon Europe, so we'll take you into that. But also Copernicus, other EU programs, ESA and national programs. So it's really, we see a wide range of funding possibilities to contribute to the establishing of EuroGEO. And next to that, we also have the voluntary open innovation partnerships called action groups. And there we try to see how we can work on from already existing developments and to leverage this along the value chain. This really works in the GEO collaborative spirit. Then we go into Horizon Europe. So already over a year ago, 1.5 years ago almost, the European Parliament and Council reached a common understanding on Horizon Europe. A common understanding on a lot of elements, but with the disclaimer that budget synergies and third country associations are still pending, because this is also depending on the overall multi-annual financial framework negotiations. This also means that whatever I am about to say in this Horizon Europe presentation is still with the disclaimer that budget synergies and third country associations are not yet fixed. Nevertheless, we have full force to start the preparations for the implementation of Horizon Europe, and we do this in a way where we actually try to co-design and work together with the member states and other stakeholders in getting the program developed, among others with the R&I days, so the Research and Innovation Days, which both in 2019 and 2020 have been booked with co-design sessions. So what does the structure look like? We have 3 pillars, one on excellent science, one on innovation, innovative Europe. The one I want to take you in today is specifically pillar 2, the global challenges and European industrial competitiveness. And this is also where before Michel was looking at. We have multiple clusters here, but the most interesting clusters I think for this group would be cluster 4, so digital industry and space, with destination 5, as Michel mentioned in there, which is on space. And then cluster 6, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment, where Copernicus and the Earth observation program are in cluster 4. The geo-related, the specifically geo-related activities and environmental observations are in cluster 6, and of course agriculture is there as well. Then if we take a bit of a closer look, we're looking at clusters and areas of interventions. There you see, for instance, in cluster 4, the space including Earth observation, and in cluster 6, the environmental observations, but also the agriculture, forestry, rural areas, and the food systems. I say specifically these 2 clusters, but of course, all the other clusters usually hold a lot of possibilities as well, either from the side of agriculture or from the side of Earth observation. For instance, in the civil security for society, there's the topics on wildfires, to name something. Then I take you from this into the introduction of the work program of cluster 6, so the one with really long name on food, natural resources, agriculture, environment and bioeconomy. The Horizon Europe intervention logic and priorities for 2021 till 2024 are defined in the strategic plan. So even though the work programs are taking 2 years, the strategic plan is 4 years to be able to prioritize better and to be able to have a better strategic view. Cluster 6 is to be designed, is proposed to be designed around 7 coherent packages of goals and topics aimed at contributing to the expected impacts of the strategic plan. These coherent packages of goals are called destinations. And as a difference to what was done in Horizon 2020, applicants will be required to, in their proposal, not only set out a credible pathway for how the project will contribute to the expected outcomes in the topic text, but also to the expected impact of the destination. So they really have to look at both, where that was slightly different in Horizon 2020, where you were mostly asked to look at the expected impacts of a specific topic or a specific goal. Here we ask you to look at both, or we will ask you. Then how does that look in a schematic overview? So we have the Horizon Europe legal base. That has the pillars and the clusters as I just shown to you, and the intervention areas, including the space, including the agricultural areas, including the environmental observations. Then we have the strategic plan, which is at a program level, and as I said, is for 4 years. This has the EU policy priorities and the key strategic orientations for R&I, and this has listed expected impacts. Then if we go to the work program level, so for the 2 years, we're working with destinations, topics. From the topics we have the expected outcomes and the scope, but actually the expected impacts are also feeding into the destination, and we're also asking potential applicants to look at both. So then specifically going into how environmental observations is put in Cluster 6. For the people who have been working with this program before under the context of Societal 5 Earth observations, so not the Copernicus part, but the other part, this is basically the successor to that. It's an interesting domain where, and this is very much true for Earth observation as well, it's cross-cutting over many destinations. So the ones that are in this specific destination are the topics where environmental observations are actually crucial for achieving the impacts listed. So if one of the domains is crucial, it means that that it should maybe better be in that specific domain. Here, the idea is to either extensively use environmental observations or to look at whatever thresholds or other problems we are facing with the better uptake of, for instance, environmental observation data. So we know that environmental observation, both data and information, is of great value in assessing the state of the planet. That's where it's so fitting to this cluster, because it's delivering crucial information for the Green Deal. And that is basically also one of the cores of this cluster, of the whole program, I would say. We're looking at ensuring better accessibility, interoperable and deployable information. This is, I think, not too much difference of what Michel was just saying. And we feel that the integration from this information from different sources, being space-based or airborne, including drones, but also in situ and citizens observations, combined with other relevant data, are really important in delivering input for shaping all of the Cluster 6 policy. For these topics, we are looking for a strong link with Copernicus, with ESA's Earth Observation Program, with GEO and EuroGEO, and of course with GEOS, the global Earth Observation System of systems. And then if we look at it a bit more, the topics we are thinking of are targeting some specific domains: climate services, decarbonization of transport and energy. One health domain, we have currently the EIC prize on early warning for epidemics, and with shaping these topics and with thinking about these topics, we really kept in mind what has been done over Horizon 2020 and even FP7 to make sure that we take the good things which were there and try have people build them further. And with we, I don't mean we, the European Commission, I mean we, the Earth observation and agricultural specialists in this whole domain. and we really are looking into bringing this further. We are really looking into ensuring better access to and exploitation of environmental knowledge, including decreasing in situ gaps and ensuring availability. So the question was there before in situ. Yes, we know it's a member state's responsibility, but in this case, it is also very costly. And if we can find out how we can decrease that, this would be extremely interesting, of course. And it's not starting from zero. We have been, of course, targeting this already in the previous years in the previous program. The emphasizing is on the downstream part of the value chain, so more looking into the applications, and that is also what makes it really complementary to what Michel was just presenting on the part of R&D within the destination space. So I'm immediately also going to my last bullet here, saying that it's complementary to Cluster 4, to Destination 5 on space. And as last but definitely not least, we are also looking into the improving of the usage of data acquired by citizens and to empower them. Starting from FP7 and having a good emphasis on that in Horizon 2020 as well, we see that this is such a valuable source of data on the one hand, and it's something we can really enable citizens to be engaged and to be empowered on the other hand. So our idea is, again, as said, to really take the strengths from Horizon 2020 and also FP7 and to work further on them. Then, next to the clusters, we also have the Horizon Europe missions. We had around this time last year, we had the so-called mission areas, which were discussed during the R&I days of 2019. This time during the R&I days, which took place from the 22nd to the 24th of September, we have actually looked at there were actually 5 missions proposed. And you can see them here, but I think specifically for here where we are now, the 5th mission is of course extremely interesting, as is the 2nd one, but all of them I think could benefit from Earth observation. Then last but definitely not least, the new approach to partnerships, a new generation of objective and more ambitious partnerships in support of agreed EU policy objectives. Over the last couple of framework programs, there has been a partnership landscape developing, which could be, let's say, more structured. And now the approach for Horizon Europe is to have 3 categories of a partnership. So the co-programmed, the co-funded, and the institutionalized. And with these partnerships, we are specifically looking for, the context which we're here, to the candidate partnership of agriculture of data. If you remember what I just showed you, how the structure look, where is this in Horizon Europe? Well, it's in Cluster 6. It's going to be in Destination 7, because both aspects of environmental observation and agriculture, especially the digital side, are to be looked at, to be put in there. And then it's connected to the earlier mentioned areas of interventions, both environmental observations and agriculture, forestry and rural areas. And with that, I like to hand over the floor to my colleague Doris Marquardt to say a bit more about that.
Thank you, Marjan. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, I would like to introduce now the Candidate Partnership Agriculture of Data. You could read it's a candidate partnership. That means it's currently proposed by the Commission, jointly by DG-RTD and DG-Agri. So it's a joint undertaking and it needs to be confirmed by the member states. Next slide, please. For setting a little bit the scene, actually, I have to admit, in this community of the workshop and after the last 4 days of discussion around the topic, I think I can make it very brief because for you and this community, it's well known. So I think for setting the scene of the partnership and the context, it directly matches in the scope of the workshop. You know well, there's more need for information for supporting sustainable agriculture and for the long-term competitiveness and for the sustainability performance. So at the same time, there's also more need for data as basis for policy monitoring and evaluation. And here we are not only thinking about monitoring, so on-the-spot monitoring undertaken by the paying agency, but also really about indicator data provision for really assessing effectiveness. So we know, and that we have seen here in the presentation in the last days, agriculture is already benefiting from the use of environmental and Earth observation data. We have precision farming that is well known, but for sure, on the other side, the potential of Earth observation data can be further exploited. So, and for sure, more sharing and integration of data and data collection and sharing across public, private domains and so on is still needed to achieve more in this field. To the same time, and I think that is also addressed already in the last days, big data technologies like AI can add value and find solutions in harvesting, very tailored solution, and add value to the data sets. For setting the scene completely, we would like to point to the Declaration on a Smart and Sustainable Digital Future for European Agriculture and Rural Areas, which was signed by member states, or most member states, in 2019, making a clear-cut commitment to drive jointly the digital and data infrastructure to enable exactly that, a smart agriculture and smart rural areas. And if you look at the actions, there's a range of actions. They also tailor the provision of public data and making it available for the sector and for agriculture policies. I will not go into detail here, but you may have a look on it. And finally, as introduced already by Marjan, there's ongoing work of EuroGEO and GEO, which is also to be considered as in the framework of the partnership. Next slide, please. So what are now the principal objectives of the proposed partnership? So to make it clear and bring it to the point, it's about using the possibilities offered by data technologies in the field of environmental observation to provide support first to the sector to increase the sustainability performance and the competitiveness of agriculture, and secondly, to improve the policy capacities for monitoring and evaluation. So we follow a two-line approach to the same time and achieve best synergies in doing so. The next slide, please. So the expected impacts, you can link them directly to the context just introduced. So for sure, it's targeting the agriculture sector, sustainability and competitiveness. So more concrete, for instance, tailoring the data sets developed for digital solutions, precision farming, providing input, for instance. Details are still should be defined, so we are here at this slide at the level of expected impact proposed by us. So what to be highlighted is that, for instance, also climate change adaptation should be in the focus of the partnership. What does this mean and imply for the work of the partnership is that we are not only looking at local data, but wider data sets, allowing, for instance, to formulate climate change adaptation strategies, and also on time series of data sets, which are important for this as well. So that is an important component to consider in the design and development of the partnership. So at the same time, it should also contribute to the improvements of forecasting and modeling capacities, of government decision-making, but for sure, modeling and forecasting is also important for the sector. As it regards support to policies mentioned at the beginning under principal objective, it's clear it's not only about agriculture policies. Agriculture data is also relevant for assessing the performance of climate policies and environmental policies, and not only about assessing the performance, but also for phrasing and framing policies as input as decision-making basis. And looking at the last 2 points on the slide, it's about defragmenting the current environmental observation landscape. I think some points were already mentioned in the previous presentations, pointing a little bit out to the problem that there are many things going on in parallel. So that is also a chance of these partnerships to address this issue. And finally, deepen the understanding of the need for future data sets. For instance, what is needed? Where do we have the gaps to tailor solutions for the agriculture sector? Where do we have the gaps in the private data portfolio, for instance, or where do we have gaps in the policy monitoring data which is currently available. Next slide, please. So, and I think this is a very important slide, particularly if we now consider that the whole community potentially targeted by the partnership is listening or large extent. And it was mentioned in the previous presentation that there's seen a need to achieve better synergies. Yes, and that is acknowledged in the proposal for this partnership as well. And please note that the list here is not comprehensive. See it as some examples where we see the possibility to achieve synergies. So for sure, AI applications are foreseen, for instance, in the Digital Euro program. Also some specifically looking at agriculture, for sure in the common agriculture data space, but also in the testing and experimentation facilities. So meaning field studies where AI is tested and particularly focusing on the agriculture sector or agri-food sector. To the same time, we have actions under the European Union Space Programme, so you are well aware of it. The work of EuroGEO or member state support in the ongoing context of LULUCF, where also the data sets are already linked to each other. And for instance, agriculture data is used as input for LULUCF monitoring. We have, as you know, several Horizon 2020 projects. So for naming one of them, it's Sen4CAP, or there's also the NIVA project. There's a whole range, so I'm not comprehensive here, so don't think that only the two of them. So at the same time, we have now a further opportunity because there's a forthcoming implementing act on high-value data sets, which is a follow-up of the Open Data Directive. And with those data sets, which will be made available in a general format and free of charge for the whole European context, you have also a new potential of common reference data. So it offers new opportunities to develop such a partnership. And furthermore, there's also the partnership on agroecology, so which directly aims on living labs, so which focus more on specific situations in the ground, but has a less territorial approach covering the whole European Union. The next slide, please. So why now a partnership? So you know we have Horizon 2020 projects, we will have Horizon Europe projects, we will have missions. But why do we propose to approach this subject in the format of a partnership? So it was mentioned in the previous presentation, key data sets are managed by public authorities in the context of Copernicus reference data. So if we would have a consortium from some member states, and they have not direct access to the relevant public data sets, it's already an advantage if in the partnership the member states are directly involved and the relevant authorities. So many monitoring and policy evaluation tasks are in the hand of the member states. We know it, they decide about relevant indicators and so on. So it would be helpful to have directly the decision makers on board. Together, for sure, and that is a partnership with researchers and innovators. For ensuring a wide outreach of the benefits. So we have to consider if we would like to reach out to the agriculture sector, it's good if it's not necessarily only offered by the private sector to the agriculture sector, but also resources are made available through a common partnership which can distribute their findings free of charge to the benefit of the sector, for instance. And for achieving a critical mass, I mentioned at the beginning the example of climate change adaptation, where the partnership should make a contribution. It would be ideal to have the European Union or Europe covered as a geographical outreach to really have a full data sets covering the territory. So for that, a partnership is also of advantage. And to be considered also, a partnership is proposed to be sustainable, to live after a funding period. So, and here it comes also to the funding. The partnership is proposed to be co-funded. So that are the main considerations for the partnership. Next slide, please. But we have to the same time to consider it as a proposal stage. At the current stage, what is published and now further development is a short description, is a so-called partnership pitch, which is a very short description and is currently revised. And that is foreseen for the rest of 2020. And but then the process of co-creation comes up. You see now that in the presentation today, I stayed at a very general level. I did not outline concrete action what the partnership will be doing. So, and that to define that agenda is foreseen to take place in a co-creation process, not only together with member states and potential partners stepping in formally in a co-funded partnership, but also with stakeholders who have the experience and background. And if it came in the presentation before to the achievements of synergies and aligning the different, also from the European Union funded projects and to bring them together, then that provides an opportunity to achieve that. So also, we were optimistic at the beginning to have workshops, but realistically speaking, it's probably about webinars at the end of 2020. So we aim at webinars to allow for the co-creation process. So probably it will be about Q4 in 2020, and we will see where we end up with the input received and what is the interest to contribute, whether we end with 2 or 3 workshops, webinars respectively, and would like to facilitate the co-creation process really with interaction. So you see, to achieve that and to formulate the agenda, there's still a little bit of time to go, and that should allow for until 23 for a real co-creation process, and we look forward to the contribution by the community. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And you may contact both of us in the case of any questions.
Okay, thank you, Doris. I will stop sharing my screen now. Ben, has there been any clarifying questions coming in? Because if not, I would propose to go immediately to the last one of Espen, to the last presentation of Espen, so we can keep maximum time for the discussion. I don't see anything coming in, so I think, Espen, the floor is yours then.
Thank you very much, Marjan. I hope I'm sharing now.
Yes, we see it.
Yeah. So I will give you a brief introduction to the ESA FutureEO program and how it supports agriculture, so that you can see what is the framework in which we from ESA side can support this community. The mission of the Earth Observation Directorate of ESA is to develop world-class Earth observation systems that should address scientific and societal challenges. So we're developing instruments on satellites that can measure different types of parameters to have a really global picture of the health of our planet. And we are doing this together with European and global partners. So one of the biggest societal challenges is, of course, food security, food safety, and we are trying to address the agriculture with some of these missions. One way of doing this, developing this Earth observation system, is through the Copernicus program, and Michel already showed us what type of sentinels that have been developed and that are being developed now. We're also developing meteorological satellites together with EUMETSAT, and we're also doing our own more scientifically oriented satellites, which we call the Earth Explorers, that I will show you a couple of examples on. So this one is next to be launched. It's called Biomass. It's our first P-band radar satellite that is targeted at measuring forest biomass and height. So for this, there has been a lot of studies, and we're the science is quite mature, and we are quite pretty sure of things that we will be able to do on forest biomass with this sensor. But that can also have some usefulness for agriculture. Of course, maybe you see out of my window some olive trees. There can be some. This can be one example. We can also there is a potential also to give contributions to water resource management. So we think that there is some potential really to be explored further with the data from this satellite also for agriculture once that it has been launched from 2022. After that one, we will launch our fluorescence explorer, which will attempt at measuring the photosynthetic activity of vegetation. So from this, the goal is to quantify the exchange of carbon between plants and the atmosphere, to provide indices on vegetation stress, and to get a better insight into plant functioning, health, and stress. So this we can be one of the fascinating things is that you could measure stress on the plants before it's visible really on the plant itself from the outside. And the list of products from the satellite is almost finished, but not approved yet. We cannot show it today. The launch is planned to be during the second quarter of 2024. So you have to be patient for getting the data, but we are already launching a number of activities to prepare for it. Then to what we are doing with the data from this mission to try to boost the science and the use of data also for operational use. We have our FutureEO program, our new program. The most interesting part of it is the EO Science for Society. So what we will do, of course, we will continue with the type of activities that we have had up to now. You have seen several examples in the 4 preceding days of projects from our ESA program. From this part of the program, and here in this FutureEO Science for Society, we also have done some new elements. First one is the grant challenges, so it's about Earth System Science Initiative together with DG-RTD. So I will get back to this in a few minutes. We also have a programmatic line of EU for Resilient Society, which were also an example of a new line where there will be application also for agriculture. We have one line on regional initiatives, and I think you already saw an example on Tuesday by Milan Fisher of the dry pan project in the Pannonian Basin. We have a big programmatic line on EU for Africa, where food security is a major issue, and we have the more methodological line on artificial intelligence and security applications. So just to give you kind of overview of the different lines we have in this new program. Then if I can get to the next slide. Oops, yes. So how do we work in these different program lines? Usually this is the way that we do workshops like the one that we have this week, where we consult the user community on what are the needs. So from that we produce workshop report, science user recommendations, and from that we will define new program parts or projects, and which then after approval will go to invitations to tender. And then we collect also at the following workshop. We will see get feedback from you, from the community, on how this worked with the activities that we launched. So that's maybe at the next workshop we will organize. We can see some results from what we start after today, maybe a bit early, but that's the principle of how we're doing. Making workshops and having reports afterwards that are inputs for how to define our activities. Yes, so that was the next one. So now I just give some examples of types of projects that we are doing within our program. You have seen some examples already during these days, as I mentioned, but here are some others. Food security app, it was already mentioned. This is a platform where we put together Earth observation data and products. So this one is based on the CREO, so the Sentinel data, for example, of CREO, you can get them directly here. We put also tools and methods on the platform. We federate with other platforms to take benefit from their functionality or performance. And so everything in one place, and we bring the users to this platform, so to the data, instead of the user having to download the data. So that's the principle of all the different tabs that we have. So this one is the one for food security, where we have 3 different interfaces basically to the platform. All are, I mean, the overall goal is really to facilitate the extraction information for Earth observation data to serve the agriculture community. And for Earth observation service provider, this is also mean to process data and to offer tailored services and quality checked products, commercial. The platform is also for universities, I mean, for scientists, for public sector, where they almost provide free of cost use of the platform. And also the platform is really tailored to be able to do massive large-scale processing. So for this, there are different cost models. And I can also mention that what ESA is doing is an initiative called the Network of Resources, where you can apply for resources to use this platform. And there is also an EC initiative called OCR, where it is also possible to get resources from this tab, from other tabs, and from the DIAs to be able to use this for free. Another type of support we're doing to the focused on the scientific community in the agriculture domain is this virtual laboratory, which is a bit similar to the tab. It's an community open science tool where you also get data and also in situ data, algorithms and derived products, and you can both access, share, visualize, process, and validate them. So you will have, in addition to the Earth observation data, also airborne campaigns. This project is just starting, so it's not yet there, but it will host curated in situ data and ancillary data, and it provides a cloud development to host and maintain open source algorithms and tools, code development tools, and it should really develop and foster an open source community for agriculture. And an important part of it is also the visualization tools, so that you can explore data set and promote easily the results. Another example of type of projects as World Cereal as one of the large demonstration projects. So with this, we are demonstrating the feasibility of global crop mapping at field scale. So really 10-meter resolution mapping globally, two different types of crops. So this is also one way of one type of project that we have done several of, and which we think they have been very, very useful, and the thing that we should continue with it. Other type of project is open call projects. We have been having every 3 months a call where people basically can propose anything they want as long as it's innovative. And this is something that we will continue to have quite some part of our budget for this open call, so that people can really submit their own ideas. And here is an example called High Nutri, where we're trying to see how we can measure the foliar chemical properties and the temporal dynamics with Sentinel and Prisma, and from there try to translate to nutrient concentration in the final agricultural production. So it's a quite ambitious project, and it's a difficult issue. We see how robust we can with Sentinel and Prisma and predict these nutrient concentrations. So for this, we are designing, testing, implementing a machine learning approach to estimate and predict the composition. And we are using analysis in labs of the constitutions of the crop grains gathered at the harvest, so that we have very good data in order to advance on this issue. Since this is on use of hyperspectral data with Prisma, it's also one of our actions to prepare for the CHIME mission that Michel presented earlier here. Then I will move to what I said that we would come back to. It's one of these lines in the program. It's the EC-ESA Joint Earth System Science Initiative. This is based on the fact that we have now, for the next decade in Europe, the most comprehensive Earth observation system in the world. But to respond to all these challenges that we have mentioned that there are, this is not alone. This is not enough with only the Earth observation data. We also need the Insitu networks, citizen data. We need models and prediction, and we need really interdisciplinary research, open science, and we need to take benefit of the new different technologies in ICT, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, etc. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to do all this by working together, ESA and the European Commission, Research and Innovation. From ESA side, we have the FutureEO program, as I have briefly described, and from Horizon Europe, and from EC, the Horizon Europe that was presented by Marjan, Doris earlier. And we're trying now to join these two programs in a way that we are aligning actions, and we have really joint actions within this new initiative. Here you can see that we have made an agreement that was signed by Deputy Director General for RTD, Patrick Child, and our Director for Earth Observation, Rolf Aschbacher, at the beginning of this year. The overall goal of the initiative is to jointly advance Earth system science and this contribution to respond to the global challenges that society is facing in the onset of this century. So we're trying to do this by defining a number of flagships, that we call them. So on the right-hand side, you see the different thematics that we have identified. You can see there a number, and you see on the bottom left the food system as one of them. So this is has been identified as one of these flagships that we will work on from now. We have identified these different flagships, the thematics, by analyzing the science needs across the clusters of Horizon Europe, of the common priorities of that program, and of our ESA science strategy. And we're trying also to select the flagship themes where we see that, of course, there is a potential to provide a major contribution from Earth observation. And we have been looking at foresight activities on major science issues and the international science programs, for example, from Future Earth on Nexus, food, water, energy, as an example. And we're looking at the areas where ESA and EC already have some precursor activities. So from that, we have selected this area. And as I said, food systems and climate adaptation is one of them. And what we have as the very brief description of it now, which is still to be worked on. This is the current one, but also maybe already from this workshop we can modify it. And for the moment, it says improve our observation capabilities and advance the scientific basis to support the resilience of agriculture productivity to climate change. determining the response of food production to many co-occurring stressors, and transfer science results into adaptation measurements and alternative management tools for a sustainable climate agriculture. So in order to do this, we of course really try to make full use of the capacity of the Sentinel missions and also the ESA's biomass and flex mission. And we will take input, as I said, from this workshop also to try to start elaborating on this flagship. So that was what I had to say now. I'll give back the word to you, Marjan. See if I don't know if for questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Espen. We indeed have one question. I think it's for you, but maybe it's more intended for all of us. I will just ask it and we see. So it's a question coming from David Kulitzes asking whether there's a plan to improve or support the interoperability with the commercial very high resolution data providers. Maybe, yeah, if you stop sharing your screen, Espen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no problem. Is there something you want to react to?
Yes, we have some activities where we are working together with new partners who are developing new types of missions. I mean, ESA, we have this. I mean, classically, these big missions that you've seen both of the explorers and in the Copernicus, but we are collaborating often with small companies who are working on smaller satellites, small missions, flexible, quicker missions. So we already have some activities together with them. Of course, we are also in some cases. I mean, when we are doing development projects and we see that in addition to Sentinels, we need other data from commercial providers. We can in some also cases also help to access in the budget of the project that we also use some of this high resolution data when it's useful. So that's kind of two ways that we are working on this domain.
Yeah, just to add a little bit from my side, not specifically targeting commercial very high resolution data providers, but in general, looking at interoperability, that is something we do target as well. So this is then a specific category, I realize that, but in any case, there is interoperability as a central element to what we propose in Horizon Europe. Shall I read out the next question, Espen, if you're okay with that? It's directed to Doris and me, specifically at Doris. Is there a difference between the agroecology partnership and the one you presented, or should it be part of agriculture of data you presented? So the agroecology partnership. Doris, would you like to take that one?
Yes. Thanks, Marjan, and thanks for the question. There are two different candidate partnerships, which are both proposed for the work program 23. So we have two partnerships. The one is on agroecology and living labs, which is really focusing on seeking bound solutions and making it agroecological solutions in agriculture practices at field level feasible. So that is really how can it work on the ground. And the second partnership, agriculture of data, which we presented, is fostering on using Earth observation data for the agriculture sector. For sure, having also the sustainability dimension in mind, but not only focusing, for instance, on agroecological farming, but on all farming approaches. It will also focusing on policy monitoring and so on. So it has more, you cannot say a theoretical approach, but a data background approach. And the other is reading about living labs, testing in the field, and finding solutions. So the partnerships proposed are supplementary, and they may, for instance, provide in situ data at the living lab partnership because they have detailed field data and then to be fed into the partnership agriculture of data. But in general, it's two different partnerships. And on the website of the partnerships, you will find the brief descriptions of both of them. And then you can directly compare them.
Yes, thank you for that, Doris. I have nothing to add to that. I do, however, have another question, but we might have answered it before from Vesta Carbuncle. Earlier this week, the ESA Agriculture Virtual Lab was mentioned. What is that about? I think you already went into that a little bit in your slides, Espen, but maybe you can comment on it a bit.
Yeah, I think we already covered it briefly today in this presentation. So maybe we can do that offline if that is fine, because we're starting to get late also.
Yeah, no problem. I think there's no questions coming in for the time being. I don't know, Espen, do you want maybe that we should ask the public some questions? Because yeah, we've really welcome some inputs on the way forward, basically.
Yeah, I can maybe just share again a slide just to get up with these main questions. I mean, we did during the 4 days up to now address these questions about what are the priority scientific issues to be addressed, and this was reflected in Ben's presentation this morning. So I think one question is if there are other ones that did not really fit into this 4 different sessions we have. Are there other scientific issues in the agriculture domain that was not picked up, but that are really something important and that we should try to address? So that would be one first question. And then the second question on this scientific issues is, I mean, further comments to any of these requirements that were already identified, because just after Ben's presentation, we did not have any time for any questions or comments. So I think these are the two main questions then concerning the scientific issues. So we'll get back to that in a second. Just showing the other. Oops, what happened? The other question is more to once we know what science issues to address, what type of actions should we do in ESA and the ESA and EC in order to address this issue? So what type of activities? I mean, we have had this typical development projects. There's been some coordination activities, coordination actions. There have been some competitions organized where we put many teams in competition to provide the best result on a certain area or come up with the best ideas. Since I described this new cooperation, this new initiative between ESA and RTD, we could potentially do really joint actions where we could benefit from the different the roles, the strengths, different strengths of different organizations in order to make maybe even better projects. So we would like to have input on that, and also if you have completely new ideas on different types of new types of projects that we can initiate. So these are the questions, and then I go just back to these scientific issues. So for that, maybe if we could try first to see if somebody has any input on the first question, if there are issues that are not covered by these 4 sessions that we already had. So we can leave a little bit time to see that if somebody has something to say on that, and then after that we will show again the slides from Ben's presentation again, and we can show each slide and see if there is any comment to any of the points on each slide.
Yeah, so please, everybody, and not only use the question function for questions, but also for inputs to us. Once they come to us, we will read them out so we can address them. Yeah, really help us here. We really would like to know what your feelings are after the last 4 days and specifically also the last session, the presentations we just had. So any input is very much welcomed. Maybe everybody has already started its Friday drinks and we're just presenting to ourselves. That could also be the case, of course.
Okay, so the first question we get is, what about coordination between devolved and devolving countries in bridge? Is it the developed and okay, in bridging numerical and digital gap specific application or program? I think it's one example of a programmatic line where we will address this is through our EU Africa program line that we have in our new FutureEO program. So this is focusing on user engagement and uptake of Earth observation solutions, and I think it will be part of that to help bridging this gap. I don't know if you have any comment on your side, Marjan.
Yeah, I think if I take it into a broader scope, so not specifically focusing on Earth observation or agriculture, but more how we're looking at evolving and developing countries. I think we do have some international cooperation parts as well within Horizon Europe to come, and I'm in all honesty, I'm not completely sure of the topics in there now because, as said before, we're very much in the developing phase of Horizon Europe right now. But that there is attention for developing countries, this is very much the case. I don't know, Doris, if you want to add something on the specific part of numerical and digital gap.
Yeah, maybe. So there are already examples where Horizon 2020 at the current stage, for instance, transfers the principle of, you may know, digital innovation hubs. So the concept of digital innovation hubs is, for instance, brought to Africa within one Horizon 2020 project, also focusing, among others, on the agriculture sector. And while we cannot make at the current stage detailed provision for Horizon Europe because the proposed themes have still to be confirmed, it is already clear that Africa and developing countries in agriculture will play a role. So we cannot make a definitive statement on that, but we can already indicate that is for sure on the agenda in the one way or the other.
Yeah, thank you for that, Doris. I think, Espen, we have a question for you now. Will ESA provide a program on which ITTs, etc., are planned within the future EO Science for Society in the next years at some point?
Yeah, so, I mean, in ESA, we are working on annual work programs, which means that, for example, now we are working on the work program for next year. We have advanced, but we're working on it, and then we have it approved by our program board, and then we can have then funding for 2021. So there will be information, annually on this that we present in different events, and then is of course to follow on the EMITs where we always announce the new ITTs. You can also, we have our EU for Science web pages now since a couple of years, where we also always announce these different ITTs, and you can find more information about the program.
Great, thank you. Let's see if there's some questions coming in, because if not, we might consider also either going to Benjamin's slides or going to the next question. Don't think there's anything coming in for now. Yeah, Espen, you had suggestion to go one by Benjamin's slides.
I mean, I think we could try to see at least if people would like to comment on each of this. We try with one slide and then we see, because we have the second thing is these more what type of activities, and that might be even more difficult. So, I mean, you see on the screen now these recommendations from session 4, quite a few of them. I will not read through them, all of them now. I will just invite you all to see if there is any of this that you would like to make some comment on. If there is a particular focus that needs to be stressed.
So I think part of it was actually already tackled with the presentations we gave with the combined part of Horizon Europe and Copernicus and FutureEO. So maybe we have answered all the questions already.
If I might comment on it, I mean, I think it would be quite a miracle if you answer all of them already, but I think we also need to consolidate that between the different institutions, how we actually can respond to all of it. I mean, there's many things which we think about already. I'm just talking about, for example, the Insitu part. We have that covered in different activities, and there's also for 2021 a dedicated platform foreseen for Insitu dataset or training datasets in the context of AI. But I think to really respond to this input we got over this week, I think we need to really consolidate this and find a coordinated manner how we can answer to that. So I think in the moment it's more about what do we miss on these things? Is there anything on these slides which we present what we can add to it? And I would propose perhaps, Espen and Marjan, that we put these slides online and kind of try to get additional input for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yep. So maybe, Espen, then we should put up the second question for discussion, I think, because unless I'm missing something, I don't think there's any specific feedback now on this part, but it might still come, and then of course we will address it as well. But maybe, Espen, we should go back to the second part on the R&D actions.
Yeah, so this is then independent on the different thematic topics. We will launch new projects, other activities, both from ESA side and from EC side, and we will also try to do these joint activities, as I said. So what you see here are these four are the ones typical things that we have tried out before. Maybe the first two ones, definitely. Competition is maybe a bit new, but we have several of them also. And then we are asking for completely new ideas. I mean, you have all, I think most of you have participated maybe in either EC project or an ESA project. Many of you have participated in both. So you have seen that they are quite different. Based on your experience, I mean, what could be a new type of projects that we do together in order to really make something that we were not able to do when we were working each on our own? Is there anybody that can have any idea on that based on experience with the ESA and EC projects, or other with other? I mean, from other, for example, the US also. We have some participants, for example, from US and other countries that have been participating in projects financed by other institutions. Others, any recommendation of how we could put together two different institutions, forces and strengths and roles, and come up with even better projects?
Yeah, just to complement to that, Espen, in here we're really looking for what kind of things you envision. So, please don't take into account whatever constraints there might be for European Commission programs or for ESA programs or in any other way. Just we would really appreciate going indeed, as you said, Espen, into your experiences, how you have been working on maybe even combined projects and what we can learn off of that, trying to make this joint cooperation to sort of develop it to its maximum. So if there's anything you can give us there, we're very much welcoming it. It doesn't have to necessarily fit into the programs as we now know it or as we foresee it now. We really just want to see what is possible there, let's say creatively.
No. Mm-hmm. Where is it?
Okay, I see a question coming in now. Regarding downstream services, could ESA fund cooperation between EO and non-EO companies, e.g. in Africa? There's some work to be done there. Espen or Benjamin, I don't know who of you would like to take this one.
Yeah, I think, what we can talk about that in that context, we work a lot in the research and development part with African institutions, universities, and so on in the new EO Africa initiative. But I think what regards the downstream service, I would like to mention actually the GMIS in Africa initiative from the European Commission in the context, funded by DG-DEFIS and DG-DEFCO, but implemented by the African Union Commission. And they really looking into the downstream services, providing similar like the Copernicus service, information services to African institutions and users. I think Michel is still online. He might complement that. I think that's very much on the downstream service side, also related to the Commission.
Well, I'm not sure I have to comment. What you have explained is true, and I think we are preparing the second phase of this program for the next 3 years. And so there are opportunities to, and then so we will relaunch the program maybe with, in certain cases, with a different configuration of the consortia. And so there are opportunities to be part of this consortia for the implementation of the program in the next 3 years. So I think if there is an interest, they can contact us directly, or the African Union, and we put them in connection with the African Union Commission. The implementation is a regional implementation, so consortia are defined per region, and the idea is to answer to regional policy needs. And so, depending on the region, you will be in contact with the people who will maybe prepare the program. So, you can contact us for that.
Great, thank you, Michel. You have another question coming in. How can we get in situ data from the farmers different from the CAP declaration, and how to get their confidence and their cooperation in a large scale? I don't know, maybe Doris, you want to say something about that?
No, at the moment, at that topic, not.
Okay. I think in general, in situ is always a very tricky part, but we're at least well aware of this being the case. So let's take this question along in further developing. I don't know if there's any other questions, but I'm also looking at the time, and it's getting quite close to 4 o'clock. So I just give the space for one last question, and if it doesn't come within basically the next 30 seconds, I would suggest that we put a closure to this session. So this is your very last chance. If you don't want to go into your weekend regretting not having asked us the question, then you should do it now. Since there's still no questions coming in, I know there's a slight delay to what I'm saying and what you're hearing, but still. But if there's no questions coming in, I'm just I will conclude that we apparently have been able to answer all of your questions, with maybe the exception of the last one, which is good. In any case, I'm really happy that we could have done this session now. It's good to be working together more closely within European context, and we are really glad that we could tell you this as well and gain your input on this. With that, I would say I would leave the final word to Espen, if you're there, Espen.
Thank you, Marjan. So first of all, we will try to continue the discussion afterwards. Now this requirements booth, once we finish, people are very welcome to join the requirements booth for this session and just continue this discussion. And we will also leave that open sometime for some days next week, so that it's still possible to provide input. We will also share. We will share inside. I think we hope we can do it inside the same umbrella system, that we can share these slides in some way with this recommendation. So it's that people can find everything in one place and we comment on it, or at least on the website for the workshop. Yes. So that's what we will do. So then I hope our discussion can continue. So that we get the input that we need from ESA and the EC to define our activities. I think we already got quite a lot during these 5 days. So I'm very happy with that. We saw lots of good presentations, and we had also many good discussions. So with this, I would like to just thank everybody, the speakers and chairs, for having made this very nice event. I'd like to also thank the whole scientific committee, participated in this from the beginning of the preparation, and also did really serious work in reviewing the abstracts. And while I say that, I would also like to thank all of you who submitted abstracts, and say that we are very sorry that we could take so few abstracts into presentations in this event, because we made it a very reduced event with respect to this large program that we had planned. And then I would encourage all of you to submit abstracts again when we will launch the next workshop, which we then are aiming for sometime mid next year. I would also like to thank the organizing committee with Hans-Jørg and Marjan on the RTD side. Of course, Ben here and with the supporting team with Sabrina and Ulla in the Irene here, who already all made this possible. And I would like to thank all participants for having followed this. As we saw from Ben's presentation, we have had more than 400 people following this event. So we're very happy about that. And then I hope to see you again, and hopefully in real next year here in Frascati. So thank you very much to everybody. And let's keep in touch through the umbrella requirements booth and the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.